Taman stood at the edge of the great council chamber, watching the alien delegates argue among themselves. Their voices echoed through the massive dome that housed the Galactic Council. Some spoke in clicks and whistles. Others used deep rumbling sounds. The translation devices turned it all into words he could understand, but the meaning was always the same. They wanted something from humanity again. The Zephyrian chairman, Nalthor, raised his four arms to call for silence. His blue skin gleamed under the artificial lights as he spoke. The human delegation will now present their proposal for the Velthari crisis. Taman walked to the center of the chamber. Around him sat representatives from 200 alien species. Some looked like giant insects. Others resembled walking trees or floating clouds of gas. All of them were full council members with voting rights, all of them except humanity. For 50 years, humans had served the council. When the Corvan pirates attacked trade ships, human fleets drove them away. When the Deltari homeworld faced a plague, human doctors found the cure. When the Zarian system needed new cities built on hostile worlds, human engineers made it happen. Every time there was danger or difficult work, the council called on humanity. So Young, the chief diplomatic officer, had prepared the usual response. Humanity would study the Velthari problem. They would send ships and people to help. They would risk human lives to save another species. In return, the council would say thank you and promise that someday, when the time was right, humans could become full members. That day never came. Taman looked up at Nalthor. The chairman's eyes were cold and dismissive. To him, humans were useful tools, nothing more. Behind Nalthor sat the other council leaders. They had the same look. They saw humans as servants who should be grateful for the chance to serve. Honored council, Taman began, his voice steady and calm. For 5 decades, humanity has answered every call for help. We have lost millions of our people protecting species we barely knew. We have spent our resources building infrastructure across the galaxy. We have solved problems that threatened the peace and stability of this council. The alien delegates listened with barely hidden impatience. They had heard this before. Humans always started these speeches by listing what they had done. Then they would ask politely for membership rights. The council would make excuses and promises. The humans would accept it and get back to work. Not today. In return, Taman continued, we have been promised full membership when the time was right. We have been told that humanity must prove itself worthy of a seat at this table. We have been asked to show patience and understanding. Hyun-woo, Earth's military coordinator, watched from the human section. His weathered face showed no emotion, but his hands were clenched. He had commanded the human fleets in dozens of battles. He had watched good soldiers die for species that would not even acknowledge their sacrifice. Today the council faces another crisis, Taman said. The Velthari homeworld is dying. A cosmic storm threatens their entire civilization. As always, you look to humanity for salvation. You expect us to send our ships into danger. You expect us to risk our people's lives. You expect us to solve your problems. Nalthor shifted in his massive chair. The human delegation will present their assistance plan, he said sharply. The council has no time for speeches. Taman smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. There will be no assistance plan. The chamber fell silent. Even the translator devices seemed to pause in shock. So Young stood up from her seat. In her hands was a formal document sealed with the mark of the Terran Federation. She walked to the center of the chamber and placed it on the council's official podium. Humanity formally withdraws from all council obligations, she announced. We will no longer serve as your military force. We will no longer build your infrastructure. We will no longer solve your crises. We will no longer accept promises that are never kept. The alien delegates exploded into chaos. Voices rose in anger and disbelief. The Manthari representative, Velka, clicked her mandibles rapidly. You cannot do this. The galaxy depends on human assistance. Does it? Taman asked quietly. His voice cut through the noise like a blade. Then perhaps the galaxy should have treated us as partners instead of servants. Nalthor slammed his primary fist on his chair's armrest. This is unacceptable. Humans have obligations. You have signed treaties. Treaties that promised us membership 50 years ago, So Young replied. Treaties that you have broken repeatedly. We are simply ending agreements that only we have honored. The Velthari delegate, a thin creature with silver skin, stepped forward desperately. Please, our people are dying. Without human help, our world will be consumed. Taman looked at the Velthari with sadness, but no regret. When the Corvin attacked our colony ships 30 years ago, did your people vote to help us? When we asked for council protection for human traders, did you support us? When we requested the simplest recognition as equals, where was your voice? The silver-skinned alien said nothing. Like all the others, the Velthari had remained silent when humans needed support. This is madness, Nalthor declared. Without human assistance, the council cannot function. You will reconsider this foolish decision. We have considered it for 50 years, Hyunwoo said, speaking for the first time. His voice was hard as steel. We built your defenses. We trained your soldiers. We designed your ships. And you treated us like hired workers who should be grateful for the chance to serve. The council had made a fundamental error. They believed humans needed the council more than the council needed humans. They thought humanity was desperate for acceptance and would never risk losing their position as helpers. They were wrong. Timon gathered his papers and stood to leave. The other human delegates followed him toward the chamber's exit. Behind them, alien voices rose in panic and rage. You will return, Nalthor called after them. When your people face crisis, you will come begging for council aid. Taman paused at the chamber's entrance. He turned back to face the assembled aliens one last time. Chairman Nalthor, humanity has faced many crises. We survived them all without your help. We learned to stand on our own long before we met any of you. As the human delegation walked out, the great chamber fell into worried silence. For the first time in 50 years, the Galactic Council would have to solve its own problems. They had no idea how impossible that would prove to be. Ji-hoon stared at the massive display screen showing the positions of human forces across the galaxy. Red dots marked military bases on 847 different worlds. Blue lines showed supply routes that stretched across dozens of star systems. Green markers indicated the engineering stations that kept alien infrastructure running. In 72 hours, all of it would be gone. Begin Operation Silent Departure, he commanded from the bridge of the flagship Incheon. Around him, communication officers started sending coded messages to every human outpost in council space. The response was immediate and flawless. Human commanders had been preparing for this moment for years. They all knew this day might come. They had planned for it in secret, hoping they would never need to use those plans. On the mining world of Kepler 442, Commander Dong-hyun received the withdrawal order at 0800 local time. By 0900, his engineering teams were already dismantling the quantum extractors that pulled rare metals from the planet's core. The alien overseers protested, but there was nothing they could do. The equipment belonged to humanity. The knowledge of how to operate it belonged to humanity. Even the workers who could safely handle the dangerous extraction process were human. Sir, the Thraxians are demanding we leave the machinery, reported Lieutenant Minho. They say the mining operation is vital to their economy. Dong-hyun continued, supervising the equipment removal. Tell them they should have thought of that before voting against Human Council membership last month. The heavy machinery was loaded onto human transport ships. What could not be moved was methodically destroyed. Dong-hyun made sure nothing useful remained behind. 50 years of alien ingratitude had taught humans to be thorough. Across the galaxy, the same scene repeated on hundreds of worlds. Human bases shut down with mechanical precision. Every piece of technology was removed or destroyed. Every data file was wiped from local systems. The aliens watched in growing panic as infrastructure they had taken for granted simply vanished. Yoonji stood in the control center of Terraform Station Alpha, orbiting the desert world of Zerion Prime. For 20 years, this station had slowly transformed the planet's atmosphere. Human-designed processors turned toxic gases into breathable air. Human-built weather machines brought rain to the endless sand. Millions of Xerian colonists lived because of this station. Begin shutdown sequence, she ordered her team of engineers. The massive atmospheric processors powered down one by one. Weather control systems went offline. The orbital mirrors that focused sunlight on the planet's surface slowly turned away. Within hours, the terraforming process that had taken decades to establish was grinding to a halt. Chief Engineer, called Technician Sang-woo from his console. The Xerian government is offering us triple pay to stay. Yoonji shook her head. Triple pay from a government that has never once supported human rights in the council? No thank you. She watched the readouts as the station's systems shut down. Each offline system represented years of human work and innovation. The Xerians had contributed nothing to the terraforming project except the planet itself. They had simply sat back and let humans do all the dangerous and difficult work. Now they would learn what their world was like without human help. On the communications hub at Relay Point 7, Da-hoon supervised the destruction of the galaxy's most advanced information network. The quantum communication system allowed instant messages across thousands of light years. It connected every major world in council space. And it was built entirely by human engineers using human technology. Sir, we're receiving dozens of emergency calls, reported Communications Officer Yu-jin. The Zephyrians are saying this violates interstellar law. Da-hoon laughed bitterly. Interstellar law? Where was interstellar law when they denied us voting rights? Where was it when they used our people as expendable soldiers? The communication arrays powered down in sequence. Quantum transmitters that had carried messages for decades fell silent. The network that connected the galaxy began to fragment as its central nodes went dark. Within hours, star systems that had enjoyed instant communication found themselves isolated. Messages that once took seconds now took months or years to reach their destinations. The Council's ability to coordinate its member worlds collapsed overnight, but the most devastating loss was not the equipment, it was the knowledge. Wu Jin sat in his office on Earth reading reports from across human space. As president of the Terran Federation, he had authorized the withdrawal. He had also authorized something far more significant. Project Clean Slate is complete, reported Intelligence Chief Kyung-soo. All technical databases have been purged. 50 years of accumulated data on alien technologies, star charts, military capabilities, and strategic weaknesses has been removed from any system the aliens can access. This was the Council's worst nightmare. Humans had not just worked for the aliens, they had studied them. Every ship they repaired taught them about alien engineering. Every world they defended showed them alien military tactics. Every diplomatic mission revealed alien political weaknesses. The humans took all of that knowledge with them. On the fortress world of Gamma Centauri, General Haiwan supervised the evacuation of the Council's most important military base. Yar base had been built to protect the galaxy's core worlds from invasion. Human soldiers had died defending it from pirates and raiders. Human engineers had designed its weapons and shields. General, the Manthari fleet is demanding we transfer control of the base defenses, reported Colonel Bora. Haiwan looked out at the massive weapons platforms orbiting the planet. Each one was a masterpiece of human military engineering. The aliens had never understood how they worked. They had simply trusted humans to operate and maintain them. Transfer control? Haiwan smiled coldly. Certainly, right after they transfer voting rights to humanity. The weapons platforms powered down. The shield generators shut off. The early warning sensors went dark. In 6 hours, the most defended system in Council space became completely vulnerable. The aliens finally began to understand what they had lost. On merchant worlds, the trade routes that humans had established and protected fell into chaos. Pirates who had been kept in check by human patrols now attacked freely. Ships that had relied on human navigation systems found themselves lost in space. On industrial worlds, factories stopped working when human-designed quantum processors failed. The aliens had the machines, but they had never learned to repair them. Only humans understood the delicate quantum mechanics that made modern manufacturing possible. On colony worlds, agricultural systems collapsed without human biotechnology. The aliens had enjoyed the food produced by human genetic engineering, but they had never learned to maintain the complex biological systems. Across the galaxy, the lights began to go out. The Council had made a simple assumption. They believed that the galaxy was too big and complex for any one species to control. They thought that humans were just one part of a vast system that would continue working without them. They were catastrophically wrong. Humans had not just participated in galactic civilization, they had become its foundation. Every critical system depended on human knowledge, human technology, or human expertise. The aliens had let themselves become completely dependent on a species they refused to treat as equals. Now they would pay the price for their arrogance. As the last human transport ships left Council space, they carried more than just people and equipment. They carried the knowledge and skills that kept the galaxy running. Behind them, they left a civilization that was discovering just how helpless it really was. The cosmic storm reached the Velthari homeworld at exactly Oro 347 Galactic Standard Time. Kethara, the Velthari Prime Minister, watched from her capital city as the sky turned purple and black. The storm stretched across space itself, twisting reality and destroying everything in its path. Her scientists had detected it months ago. They had calculated that it would consume their entire solar system. That was when they had called for help from the Galactic Council. The Council had promised aid. They always did. But when the crisis became real, they had turned to humanity for actual solutions. Humans always found a way to stop the impossible disasters. They always saved the species that needed saving. But the humans were gone. Status report, Kethara demanded from her emergency bunker deep underground. The storm has entered our atmosphere, reported Science Minister Velthas. The quantum shields are failing. Without the human stabilizer technology, we cannot maintain the protective barrier. Kethara closed her silver eyes. 3 months ago, her government had voted against giving humans full council membership. The proposal had seemed unreasonable at the time. Humans were useful servants, not equals. Why should they have the same rights as ancient species like the Zephyrians or Menthari? Now she knew why. Above ground, the cosmic storm tore through the Velthari cities. Buildings that had stood for thousands of years dissolved into quantum foam. Millions of people vanished as reality itself came apart around them. The few emergency shelters equipped with human-designed shields held for a while, but even they began to fail without human technicians to maintain them. By dawn, the Velthari homeworld was gone. 17 billion people died because the Council could not solve a crisis without human help. The news spread across the galaxy through the failing communication networks. Species that had dismissed human warnings about the cosmic storm suddenly realized what had happened. The humans could have stopped it. Their quantum shield technology was advanced enough to deflect even cosmic-level phenomena. But they had not been asked to help. They had been commanded to help, and they had refused. Chairman Nalthor sat in his private chambers on the Zephyrian capital world, staring at reports from across council space. 3 months after the human withdrawal, the galaxy was falling apart. "Sir, we have another system failure report," announced his aide, clicking nervously. "The Kepler trade route has completely collapsed. Without the human-maintained jump gates, ships cannot navigate the hyperspace currents." Nalthor's blue skin had turned a pale shade that indicated stress among his people. The Kepler trade route connected 50 star systems and carried 30% of galactic commerce. Its collapse meant economic disaster for hundreds of worlds. "What about our own technicians?" he asked. "Can they not repair the jump gates?" The aide's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme discomfort. "Sir, our engineers studied the human designs for decades, but they never understood the underlying quantum mechanics. The jump gates were black boxes to us. We could operate them, but we cannot fix them." This was the pattern everywhere. Humans had shared their technology freely, but they had never fully explained how it worked. The aliens had assumed this was because humans were showing off their superior knowledge. Now they realized it was because the technology was so advanced that non-humans simply could not understand it. On the industrial world of Corax Major, factory manager Thexal watched his production lines shut down one by one. The quantum processors that controlled manufacturing had failed 3 weeks ago. Without them, nothing could be built. "Have we found replacement processors?" he asked his engineering team. Chief Engineer Yexon shook his metal-plated head sadly. "Sir, we have tried to reverse engineer the human quantum technology. Our best scientists have examined the failed processors. They say the quantum matrix structures are beyond our understanding. We would need centuries to develop similar technology." Thexal looked out at his silent factories. This facility had produced starship components for the entire sector. Now it was just empty buildings and useless machines. Across the galaxy, similar factories were shutting down as their human-designed systems failed. The Zephyrian industrial output had dropped by 60% in 3 months, but the economic problems were nothing compared to the security crisis. Admiral Zektul of the Manthari Defense Fleet received an emergency message as his ship patrolled the Outer Rim territories. "Admiral, the Corvan pirates have attacked the Deltari merchant convoy. They destroyed 12 ships and captured 3,000 civilians." Zektul's compound eyes darkened with anger. The Corvan pirates had been quiet for decades, kept in check by human patrol fleets. With the humans gone, the pirates had returned to their old habits. "Deploy the 3rd battle group to intercept them," he ordered. "Sir?" His navigation officer replied hesitantly. "The 3rd battle group is still lost in hyperspace. They attempted to use the Gamma 7 jump route last week. Without human navigational data, they cannot find their way back to normal space." This was happening across the galaxy. Military fleets that had relied on human star charts and navigation technology found themselves unable to travel safely through hyperspace. Some were lost forever in the chaotic dimensions between stars. Others were stranded in distant systems without fuel or supplies. The Council's military power was evaporating. Bora sat in the monitoring station on Earth, listening to intercepted alien communications. As Earth's communications intelligence chief, she tracked the collapse of Council civilization with professional interest. "The Zarian colonies are declaring independence from the Council," she reported to President Wu Jin during their daily briefing. "Without the terraforming stations, their worlds are becoming uninhabitable. They blame the Council for losing human support." Wu Jin nodded grimly. He took no pleasure in the alien suffering, but he felt no regret either. Humanity had offered partnership for 50 years. The aliens had chosen superiority instead. "How many systems have left the Council?" he asked. 17 so far, Bora replied. "The Velkar Assembly pulled out yesterday. They said the Council is, quote, a failed institution that cannot protect its members." End quote. The pattern was clear. As human-maintained systems failed and human-protected, worlds fell to pirates. Member species began questioning the value of Council membership. Why pay taxes to a government that could not provide basic services? The Council that had once ruled 200 species was watching its empire crumble. In the Great Council chamber, emergency sessions ran around the clock. Desperate delegates argued about solutions to problems they did not understand. The Thraxians demanded military action to force human cooperation. The Manthari suggested economic sanctions against Earth. The Zephyrians proposed finding alternative technologies to replace human systems. None of them understood the real problem. "The humans were not just another member species," explained Yilnar, one of the few Kepler scientists who had worked closely with human engineers. "They were the technological foundation of our entire civilization. Their quantum mechanics knowledge is centuries ahead of ours. Their military strategies are more sophisticated than anything we developed. Their diplomatic methods actually solved conflicts instead of just postponing them." The chamber fell silent as the truth sank in. The Council had not been ruling a galactic civilization. They had been the ceremonial leaders of a human-built and human-maintained empire. The humans had done the real work while the aliens took credit and made speeches. Now the real workers were gone. Chairman Nalthor stood before the assembled delegates, his once proud bearing now showing signs of desperation. "We must find a way to contact the humans. We must negotiate their return. With what leverage? Asked the Thraxian delegate bitterly. We have nothing they want. We cannot threaten them. They built all our weapons. We cannot bribe them. Our economy is collapsing without their expertise. We can only beg. The word hung in the air like a curse. The proud Galactic Council, rulers of 200 species, reduced to begging for help from the servants they had scorned. Outside the chamber, space itself seemed darker. The Great Trade. Routes that had connected the galaxy for centuries were falling silent. The military fleets that had kept the peace were lost or powerless. The industrial worlds that had supplied the Council's needs were shutting down. The galaxy was learning what happened when you built your civilization on the backs of people you refused to treat as equals. And somewhere in the darkness, humanity was building something new. Admiral Kyung-Soo stood on the bridge of the battleship Seoul, watching the Council fleet approach the edge of human space. 23 warships from 6 different alien species had come to force humanity back into service. They carried the UI Council's ultimatum: return to your duties or face the consequences. The aliens still did not understand who they were threatening. Sir, the enemy fleet is requesting communication, reported Communications Officer Min Jung. Put them through, Kyung-Soo replied calmly. The main screen showed Admiral Zektul of the Manthari fleet, his compound eyes glowing with anger. Behind him stood representatives from the other Council species. They looked confident and threatening. Human. Fleet. You are ordered to surrender immediately, Zektul announced. By authority of the Galactic Council, you will return to Council space and resume your obligations. Resistance will be met with force. Kyung-Soo smiled politely. Admiral Zektul, you are approaching the sovereign territory of the Terran Federation without permission. You have 30 seconds to reverse course before we consider your presence an act of war. Zektul's mandibles clicked in disbelief. You dare threaten the combined might of the Council? We outnumber you 3-1. Numbers are not everything, Kyung-Soo replied softly. You should have learned that by now. The alien admiral cut the communication and ordered his fleet to attack. What happened next would be studied in military academies for centuries. The Council ships opened fire with their plasma cannons and quantum torpedoes. Their weapons had been designed by their own engineers and were considered state-of-the-art by alien standards. The energy beams and explosive projectiles streaked toward the human fleet. None of them hit their targets. Every human ship simply flickered and disappeared from the alien sensors. The attacks passed harmlessly through empty space while the human vessels reappeared in completely different positions. Impossible, Zektul shouted. How are they moving like that? His navigation officer's voice shook with fear. Sir, they're using quantum displacement technology. Our sensors cannot track them when they phase shift through subspace. This was technology the aliens had never seen before, but they should have expected it. For 50 years, humans had studied every alien ship design while maintaining and repairing Council fleets. They knew every weakness, every blind spot, every limitation of alien military technology. The human counterattack began. The battleship Seoul materialized directly behind the Manthari flagship. Its quantum cannons fired once. The alien ship's shields collapsed instantly, overwhelmed by weapons designed specifically to counter Manthari defensive systems. Across the battlefield, human ships appeared and disappeared like ghosts. Each time they materialized, alien vessels suffered catastrophic damage. The Council fleet had no defense against tactics they could not predict, or weapons they did not understand. Admiral, we must retreat, Zektul's tactical officer reported. We have lost 12 ships in 4 minutes. But retreat was impossible. The human fleet had surrounded the Council ships using the same quantum displacement technology. Every escape route was blocked by weapons platforms that appeared and vanished at will. The engagement lasted exactly 14 minutes and 27 seconds. When it ended, the Council fleet was completely destroyed. Not a single human ship had taken significant damage. The aliens' most advanced warships had been outfought by technology they could not comprehend and tactics they could not counter. Kyung-Soo opened a communication channel to any surviving alien crew members. This is Admiral Kyung-soo of the Terran Federation Navy. We are transmitting your location to Council rescue ships. I suggest you reconsider your approach to diplomatic relations. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer the Council's servant military. They were now the galaxy's dominant military power. In the Council chamber on Zephyria Prime, the news of the fleet's destruction sent the alien delegates into panic. Chairman Nalthor could barely maintain order as species representatives shouted demands and accusations. "The humans have violated all laws of warfare," screamed the Thraxian delegate. "This aggression cannot stand." "What aggression?" asked Yilnar, the Kepler scientist who had become the voice of reason in the chaos. "We sent a military fleet to attack their territory. They defended themselves. Under galactic law, they had every right to destroy our ships." The truth was bitter, but undeniable. The Council had started the conflict. Their ultimatum had been an act of war. The humans had simply finished it with devastating efficiency. "How did they become so powerful?" whispered the Deltari representative. "Their technology was advanced, but not this advanced." Haywan, Earth's former military liaison to the Council, could have answered that question. She had spent years working with alien officers, studying their strategies and equipment. Every joint training exercise had taught humans about alien capabilities. Every shared military project had revealed alien weaknesses. The aliens had treated those collaborations as useful cooperation. The humans had treated them as intelligence gathering. Now, sitting in her new office as Director of Terran Strategic Defense, Haiwan reviewed the battle reports with satisfaction. The Council species never understood that sharing information is a two-way process, she explained to her staff. They showed us their technology. We improved it and built countermeasures. They revealed their tactics. We developed superior strategies. They gave us access to their military systems. We learned how to defeat them. The irony was perfect. The Council's own arrogance had created their downfall. By treating humans as junior partners rather than equals, they had revealed all their secrets while learning none of humanity's. The military defeat was followed by economic desperation. Finance Minister Velka of the Manthari government sent a direct message to Earth 3 days after the battle. Her people's industrial economy had collapsed completely without human quantum processors. They were offering massive payments for human technical assistance. "We can triple your previous compensation," she transmitted. "Our government is prepared to discuss improved working conditions for human personnel." The response came from Kyung-ho, Earth's Minister of Economic Affairs. His reply was brief and cold. "The Terran Federation does not employ its citizens to foreign governments. We do not provide technical assistance to entities that refuse to recognize our sovereignty. All economic negotiations must go through proper diplomatic channels between equal governments." The message was clear. Humanity would no longer work for the Council as subordinates. Any future cooperation would be between sovereign equals or not at all. Similar messages came from dozens of alien governments. The Xerian colonies offered exclusive mining rights in exchange for renewed terraforming assistance. The Zephyrian military promised command positions for human officers who would return to service. The Thraxian merchant guilds offered unlimited trading privileges for human commercial access. All of them received the same response. Humanity was no longer available for hire. The final desperate measure came from Chairman Nalthor himself. A galaxy-wide broadcast, he announced the Council's new position. "The Galactic Council recognizes that our previous relationship with humanity was imperfect. We are prepared to offer immediate full membership to the human species, with complete voting rights and representation. In exchange, we ask only that humanity resume its vital role in maintaining galactic security and infrastructure." It was everything the humans had asked for 50 years ago. Full membership, equal rights, voting power in Council decisions. The offer that had been refused for decades was now being desperately offered. But it was too late. The human response came from President Wu Jin in a broadcast from Earth. His words were measured and final. "The Terran Federation appreciates the Council's offer. However, we have observed the Council's inability to maintain basic governmental functions. We have seen its failure to protect member species from existential threats. We have witnessed its complete dependence on technologies and services it does not understand. The Terran Federation cannot in good conscience join an organization that has proven itself fundamentally incompetent. The rejection hit the Council like a physical blow. They had offered everything they could, and it was not enough. Nalthor slumped in his chair as the reality sank in. The Council had not just lost their most valuable member species, they had created their own replacement. Reports were already coming in of alien species making direct contact with Earth. Governments that had lost faith in the Council were seeking new partnerships. Military forces that could no longer rely on Council protection were requesting Terran defense agreements. The galaxy was choosing a new leader, and humanity was ready to accept the responsibility that came with power, but on their own terms, and as equals to those they protected. Station Harmony floated in the neutral space between the old Council territory and human space. The massive structure had been built in just 6 months, using human engineering and willing alien labor. Unlike the Grand Council chamber with its displays of power and hierarchy, Harmony was designed around a simple principle: equality. Tae-min walked through the station's central assembly hall, admiring the elegant simplicity of its design. Round tables replaced the towering podiums of the old Council. Translation devices were built into every seat, not just the important ones. Every species had the same size delegation area, from the massive Thraxians to the tiny Kepler scientists. Today would mark the first assembly of the Democratic Alliance of Worlds. So Young stood at the main podium, not as a supplicant asking for membership, but as the representative of the Alliance's founding government. Around her sat delegates from 43 species that had left the collapsing Council to join humanity's alternative. Honored delegates, she began, we gather today not as rulers and subjects, but as equals seeking mutual prosperity and protection. The Democratic Alliance of Worlds welcomes all species that share our commitment to genuine cooperation and shared governance. The response was immediate and positive. Unlike the old Council meetings, where alien representatives had sat in bored silence while humans presented their service reports, these delegates participated actively. They asked questions, offered suggestions, and contributed their own expertise to shared problems. Representative Yilnar of the Kepler Union raised her hand to speak. The Kepler scientific community offers to share our astronomical research with all Alliance members. We believe that knowledge belongs to everyone, not just its creators. This was the fundamental difference between the Alliance and the Council. The Council had hoarded information and resources, creating dependency and hierarchy. The Alliance encouraged sharing and collaboration, building strength through unity. Dalesh, the young Thraxian delegate, who had replaced the old warhawks of his species, stood to address the assembly. My people have made mistakes in the past. We supported policies based on fear rather than wisdom. The Thraxian Republic wishes to contribute our mining expertise to Alliance infrastructure projects, with no expectation of special treatment or priority access to resources. Murmurs of approval filled the chamber. The old Council had operated on favoritism and bribery. Species received benefits based on their political power, not their contributions. The Alliance measured membership by what you gave, not what you could take. In the observation gallery, a small group of Council loyalists watched the proceedings with growing despair. They had come as unofficial observers, hoping to find weaknesses in humanity's new system. Instead, they saw everything the Council had failed to become. Nalthor himself had come, though he sat in the back where his distinctive blue skin would not draw attention. As the former chairman of the Galactic Council, watching this display of functional democracy was deeply painful. They make it look so easy, whispered Velka, the Manthari representative who had remained loyal to the dying Council. Equal representation, shared resources, mutual defense. Why could we never achieve this? Nalthor knew the answer, though it shamed him to admit it. Because we believed in our own superiority. We thought advanced age meant advanced wisdom. We confused power with competence. On the main floor, President Wu Jin took the podium to present the Alliance Charter. The document was everything the Council Constitution was not: clear, fair, and protective of minority rights. Article 1, he read aloud. All member species possess equal voting rights regardless of size, age, or technological development. Article 2. Military protection is provided to all members without condition or payment. Article 3. Economic assistance is distributed based on need, not political influence. Article 4. Technological advancement benefits all alliance members equally. Each article drove home the contrast with Council policies. Where the Council had created hierarchy, the alliance created equality. Where the Council had demanded payment for protection, the alliance offered it freely. Where the Council had hoarded technology, the alliance shared it openly. The vote to ratify the charter was unanimous. As the formal session ended, delegates mingled in small groups, discussing practical matters of trade, defense, and scientific cooperation. The atmosphere was relaxed and productive. These beings were working together as partners, not competing for the favor of superior species. Kyung-ho, now the Alliance's economic coordinator, found himself surrounded by representatives eager to establish trade relationships. The Deltari agricultural worlds can supply food to the Thraxian mining colonies, suggested one delegate. In exchange, the Thraxians can provide rare metals for Deltari manufacturing. This was how the Alliance worked. Instead of all resources flowing through a central council bureaucracy, member species dealt directly with each other. Humanity provided the framework and protection, but the actual cooperation happened between equals. In a private meeting room, the remaining council loyalists held a desperate conference. Only 12 species remained loyal to the old system, and even they were wavering. "We must face reality," said Kexel, the pragmatic Zephyrian who had opposed Nalthor's hardline policies. "The council is finished. Our choice is simple: join the alliance as equals, or watch our civilizations collapse in isolation." Nalthor's pride warred with his common sense. Everything he had believed about Zephyrian superiority was crumbling around him. The humans he had dismissed as useful servants were now the galaxy's dominant power. The species he had considered inferior were prospering under Alliance protection. "If we join the Alliance," he asked quietly, "what happens to our leadership positions? What happens to our authority?" Kexel looked at his former chairman with something approaching pity. "We become ordinary member species with one vote each. We contribute our skills and receive protection and cooperation in return. We become what we should have been all along: equal partners in a galactic community." The concept was terrifying to beings who had ruled for millennia. But the alternative was extinction. 3 hours later, Nalthor stood before the Alliance Assembly as a petitioner rather than a ruler. His request for Zephyrian membership was simple and humble. His species offered their administrative experience and agricultural worlds in exchange for alliance protection and economic cooperation. The vote was close. Many alliance members remembered Zephyrian arrogance and oppression, but Wu Jin spoke in favor of acceptance. "The alliance's strength comes from forgiveness as much as justice," he argued. "We judge species by their current actions, not their past mistakes. If the Zephyrian Republic commits to equality and cooperation, they deserve the same chance we have given to others." The motion passed by a narrow margin. Nalthor took his seat as an ordinary delegate, his authority reduced to one vote among equals. For a being who had commanded 200 species, it was a humbling experience, but it was also liberating. 6 months later, the transformation was complete. The old Galactic Council officially dissolved itself when its last members joined the Alliance. The Grand Council chamber was converted into a museum, a reminder of what happened when power was concentrated in the hands of the few. Station Harmony had become the new capital of galactic civilization. Trade flowed freely between member worlds. Scientific discoveries were shared immediately across all species. Military protection was provided without favoritism or payment. The Alliance fleet, commanded by human officers but crewed by volunteers, from dozens of species patrolled the galaxy's trade routes. Pirates who had terrorized merchant ships during the Council's collapse found themselves facing overwhelming force whenever they attacked Alliance vessels. More importantly, the Alliance actually solved problems instead of just managing them. When the Corvan pirates established a base in the Outer Rim, Alliance forces didn't just drive them away. They offered the displaced pirates legitimate employment in the mining and construction industries. When a plague threatened the Velthari refugee colonies, Alliance scientists developed a cure and distributed it freely to all affected worlds. In his private quarters on Station Harmony, Taemin reviewed the weekly status reports with satisfaction. Galactic trade was at an all-time high. Scientific advancement was accelerating as species shared knowledge freely. Military conflicts had decreased by 90% as the Alliance mediated disputes before they became wars. Most importantly, the refugee crisis had ended. The billions of beings displaced by the Council's collapse had found new homes on Alliance worlds. Species that had lost their homeworlds were rebuilding with Alliance assistance. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had healed it. A communication alert interrupted his thoughts. The message was from Earth, marked with the highest priority codes. Ambassador Taemin, came the voice of President Wu Jin. We have received a signal from the edge of the galaxy. Long-range sensors have detected what appears to be an approaching invasion fleet. Unknown technology, massive scale. Preliminary. Estimates suggest a force larger than anything in recorded galactic history. Taemin felt a familiar chill. Another crisis. Another threat to galactic civilization. In the old days, the Council would have panicked and demanded that humanity solve the problem.